Welcome to Linebreak Rugby. Me, your host Sav, and I have Fred with me here today, and he's written an article on the Italy-England game. I actually forgot that England were playing for some reason. Do you want to say hi, Fred?
Hi, Fred. Classic.
There we go. See that it's the normal returns back.
Everything's working. Everything's in order.
Everything. Well, the world is in order, apart from it's completely not in order.
Yeah, the world is offside.
The world is offside. The world is upside down, and nobody has a clue what's going on.
No, it's not that complex.
It's not that just read Fred's article. It's in the link below.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, I don't actually explain the technical aspect of it because I thought, well, someone else is going to do it better anyway. And there's
I didn't think there was that much technical about it. There's no ruck, so they can stand where they want as long as they don't interfere with the 9. That's basically it.
Yeah, well, there is one thing that two things that people were complaining about. One, that supposedly the ref wasn't refereeing it the same way both ways, as in when England tried to do it, he wasn't as vocal, helping them knowing when it was a ruck, when it wasn't. But they didn't try it very often. So that's one thing. And the other that people were complaining about, which is quite important, is are you allowed to drag in players to form the ruck? So some people are saying that you are allowed, and Pocock, it did happen in Super Rugby where he basically nullified the other team's actions by pulling someone into the ruck, and the ref said, right, fair enough, that's a ruck.
Yeah.
And that's Poit told Launchbury that wasn't good enough. It had to be a player that engages himself.
Yeah.
And turns out Poit is right.
Because, that's what World Rugby have been telling people.
Yeah.
And to me that makes perfect sense. You shouldn't be allowed to force somebody into a ruck, just like you shouldn't be able to force somebody. Because I don't know. I feel like if you're going to contest for the ball, you need to make the decision to contest. You can't be forced to contest, because then you're not contesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you're not actually trying to get the ball, then it's not a contest. And I understand that. I think in the letter of the law it says contact over the ball, but it can be interpreted different ways. And World Rugby has told the refs that grabbing does not count. So,
and it's grabbing in the way that you're holding onto someone, so you count that as a bind, and you say it's a ruck. But to be fair, you could always grab onto someone, basically forcing them to engage into a ruck, and then they're engaging, and that's a ruck. So, just like in, when you do a line-out maul, it's a common tactic. It's been used more often than this one to not engage in the maul. And that means that you can go around the maul and get the ball at the back. It also means that if you recognise it as the jumper, as soon as you go down and you see that no one is engaging, you just get a 10-metre run through with no opposition, because they've all gotten out of the way. Yeah. Which is basically the same thing for the ruck. It's a bit more difficult to do, but it's there. It's there for taking.
It's as if, there was shock and horror when I think it was George Smith was the first person to decide that he would get to the ruck or get to the tackle before it's a ruck and steal the ball with his hands.
Yep.
Because before that, people didn't really do that. They kind of stepped over and tried to kick it back.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of got confused and said, well, no, ref, it's not a ruck. So it's all these kind of technical law things create a brand new event in rugby. And yeah, sure, this one's been done before, but this was the Northern Hemisphere suddenly going, oh crap, this can be used consistently throughout a game almost, and quite successfulely.
Yeah, that example was brilliant. I think you took it from the journalist that asked Eddie Jones after the game, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's perfect. It's the exact point. He literally, the reason why you're allowed to jackal is simple, is because there's no ruck. It hasn't been formed, so there's no reason why you couldn't put your hands in there. And it's also the reason why when you come into there's a jackling player who's not a ruck, you are allowed to do what some people call the judo roll or the crocodile roll. which is basically taking the player off their feet, which would be illegal in a ruck, but it's not a ruck because no ruck has been formed yet.
That's interesting.
And that's why the rule is legal.
I get annoyed by the role, but I can see where you're coming from now. Now that you've said that. Anyway, I mean, to me is.
I get annoyed when I see it on TV, but I do it every single Saturday because if the guy is low enough, there's nothing else to do.
You can't get under him. You need to be a very small little terrier-like creature to get underneath someone.
And if
to be fair, my
press hard
technique
enough on his chest, he will let go of the ball, and you will get leverage.
Yeah. My technique is to kind of punch. I punch through the middle of their hands and try and separate their hands.
That's also a technique. Yeah.
That's my technique. I get annoyed by the crocodile because I'm just like, it's a little bit unnecessary and it could put people in danger.
Well, a properly done rule, I think, puts you less in danger of, the classical 7 injury, which is a twisted knee because you got ran into with full pace by someone or
compressed spine or something.
Exactly. Both perfectly legal ways of getting rid of someone.
I would urge people to. Well, once again, this was aimed to be an article type podcast. Fred's written an article, and we have recorded a Monday podcast regularly. However, the Monday podcast. It does appear that Ed's audio is a complete mess, and I'm currently trying to fix it. So this might be the only podcast you're listening to. If this is the only podcast you're listening to, I've previously spoken about Italy, England, France, Ireland, Wales, Scotland to heart's content, and kind of done. But we can do it again, Ed, with Fred, if you want.
Yeah, up to you. I didn't see the Scotland game. I was playing, and I was drunk during most of the Ireland game, because it was Saturday afternoon.
Well, the Ireland France game was. I think me and Ed agreed it was the worst one. I think it was the worst one. It was all right. Sexton had a good game. I'll say what I said in the other pod. Sexton had a good game, and Seren looks exciting.
Oh, yeah, he does. I mean, it's difficult being a French fan because you get expectations. Obviously, I didn't expect to win this game. But while it's happening and there are a few threats, you think that, we could do this. And it didn't happen. But fair enough. I think Ireland had a solid game and it seemed like a logical result in the end. Quite disappointed we didn't get the losing bonus point because I feel we actually deserved it.
Yeah.
But didn't get it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel frustrated. I understand what you're saying about being a French fan, like the expectations there. You see Spedding playing well and you think, oh, it might be possible. You see Pickamoles and Seren connecting and you think, oh, anything could happen. And then you go up against an Irish team at home with Sexton back. And it just kind of fell apart. It wasn't like France played really badly, but it just didn't quite happen. I don't know. There was something inevitable about it, and that was frustrating for me because I thought the French would just kick on and keep going.
Yeah, certainly it wasn't as good as the England game, and the Scotland win wasn't as convincing as the England loss somehow.
Very true.
Because it didn't have that sort of. It's also the surprise element, but I kind of want to stay on England-Italy because I thought it was going to be a boring game. I was coaching in the morning, and one of the kids left early to go to Twickenham. I said, well, have fun and go on Italy. And as soon I put on the TV, first 20 minutes, I was bored to death. I thought, well, Italy are in this, good on them. They're going to get whitewashed anyway, but good on them.
Nathan Hughes is dropping the ball.
Yeah, Farrell's having an off day. Kerr's having an off day. Hughes is having an off day. But in the end, this team has too much quality compared to the Italian team to lose this game.
Yeah.
And that's when the game started being really interesting. And I was crying with laughter at the end of the half when they scored off the post. It was just comedy.
I never thought we'd lose, but I gotta admit, I was laughing as well because just at the inability of the England team to react. I felt like it was under 14 schoolboy rugby where the ref knows what's going on, the other team knows what's going on, but your team and the coaches don't have a clue, and you're kind of running around and everybody's trying to figure out how to solve this problem that nobody knows. And it was a little bit embarrassing.
I thought it was. That's the biggest surprise for me in that game wasn't the Italian tactic, even though it was fairly new. I'd only seen it a couple of times with Pocock against Ireland in the autumn. That's the first time I'd ever seen somebody literally go on the other side of the ruck because there's no ruck. And he got the ball. Murray just passed the ball straight to Pocock, and then Folau butchered the try later on, which was really weird. So I'd seen this before, and I'd read an article on it, so I wasn't that surprised. The first time Parisi did it, it was in the middle of nowhere. There wasn't really... It didn't seem like there was an intent from the Italians to not compete at that point. He did it once. Everyone looked a bit confused, and then they started doing it again and again and again. And commentators knew what was going on. Italians knew what was going on. I knew what was going on. And then I thought, well, it seems like the English players don't have a clue what's going on. And that was the biggest surprise. I
said this in the other pod, and I'm going to keep referring to the fact that we've recorded another pod, but I think Daly and Itoje were maybe Linebreak, those three were maybe the only people who had a clue what was going on.
Well, Daly he wasn't too involved in that. He was only involved in the kicking game and in finish. I thought he was amazing. Daly
but he didn't lose his head. I feel like the rest of them were so caught up in trying to solve this weird problem that they had in front of them that they weren't focusing on just doing their job. It actually caught
the outside backs. Like, I don't think it really had an impact on Brown or May, because May doesn't understand the scrum anyway.
May's head was exploding.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way that Johnny May had any idea what was going on. But it didn't.
May probably really stood on the other side, just like what?
Backs, because they weren't involved. They had a normal kicking game.
Yeah, there was a bit of kick tennis.
It's the forwards that really had a problem, and especially the England front row looked so confused.
Yeah, Marler, Dan Cole, Hartley, they really struggled. And Kerr did as well, to be honest with you. He was pushing things really hard, and it was getting... I remember putting in the thread, I was really frustrated. Danny Kerr trying to push that pass past a player who was just standing there. It was just no need. He didn't need to do any of that.
And I think it's a big part of the responsibility is on Danny Kerr, because the pressure's on him at this point. Because the situation changes at the breakdown. Who's the first person? No, not the first person, but who's the important person at the breakdown? It's the scrum half.
Yeah. And
he's got to make a decision. So it's obviously not on him, but he's got to be leading the pack. He's got to be telling them what to do. And George Ford is also guilty of that. He's the 10. He is not the captain, but the person that directs the game. So in France, it's the 9 that directs the game. In England, it definitely is the 10. And
in England,
he needs to come in there and just tell them, literally do something. Try something out. There's so many solutions. I've made a list of things I think can be solutions. And not all of them are going to work. Some of them will actually go really badly. But if you don't try them, you're not going to know.
Especially against Italy. I don't know why we sat in such a rigid pattern for the first half, for so long in the first half. Why nobody... I mean, Linebreak did... they did that weird maul thing where they decided they were going to set up a maul rather than a ruck, because a maul has to have an offside line, so that will create an offside line, and then we will just play the game that we want to play. But you can only set up a maul once. Yeah,
but to be fair, that's trying something.
Yeah, but that was the main innovation. They did a maul, you know. I thought, as innovations go, it wasn't the worst one, but I thought it was the least inventive. To be honest with you,
mauls are underrated. Maul is a great attacking type.
You don't need to tell an extra fan about mauling. I tell you. When Thomas the Tank Engine's our top scorer, I think Exeter boys know how to maul.
Yeah, I see what you mean. But that's so the important thing, and the point I try to make in my article is all about teaching players to play what's in front of them. You hear that at training every single week, all the time. Play what's in front of you.
Something Johnny May can't do.
Well, just put your head in between the legs of what's in front of you. That's It's something. It's so simple. It's a principle that's so simple. So one of the options is pick and go, guys. So if no one's in the ruck, to not be in the ruck, they've got to be more than a metre away, and 1 metre is a long way.
Well, it means you've got a 3 metre every single pick and go.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. And that's then, momentum, and that's another metre. So you're gaining 2 meters. They can't do that all the way to the try line, you know?
No, you can't do that all the way to the try line, but you gain momentum. And as soon as you gain momentum, you create, you put the other team on the back foot, you create discord, and the guys who are staying in that where would be offside are going to create, they're not going to be in the line, they're not going to be man marking everyone like it's a netball game.
Yeah.
There's going to be gaps, and if you've played rugby netball before at training, probably a million times, there's gaps everywhere.
Yeah, you just run it. Yeah, and you run into them.
So you've got to create something. You've got to push them any way you want. You can, and also there's no one over the ball. So if you're on the ground and there's no one coming for the ball, no one going over, you can just pop it, offload from the ground. Boom, next person's in.
Yeah,
it's
100%.
It's one of many ways you can look at it. You can chip over, you can grubber, you can pass it really far back. And
what's pain? Yeah, really, the really far back one was what sprung to my mind, right? So in my head, we have 2 or 3 even distributors that can play 10. So if Farrell's sitting way back and Ford's sitting in
Daly.
the 10 position,
you mean
Daly,
okay.
Yeah. Daly can be on the right, Ford on the left, and Farrell shooting straight back. To block that, the Italians have to have 3 men standing around the 9.
Yeah.
And if they do that, then there's a huge gap somewhere else on the pitch.
Absolutely. Spot on.
So that to me was the simplest way. If we want to play in the backs, Eddie Jones said after the game, we wanted to spread it wide. Well, that's fine. How about you actually devise a solution that lets you do that, rather than devise a solution which involves a hit or miss, maybe create a maul, or Nathan Hughes tries a clever little I've been tackled, let go of the ball, pick it up again, run again sort of deal.
That's the solution.
Yeah, that worked well to gain yards. But I don't know, I feel like we were so desperate to use our packs, and Italy devised a very clever way to not do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the adaptation of our team wasn't very good, and it was quite frustrating. The other point, and you made it in the article, so I was quite happy with that, is Haskell asked the question. Everybody took the mick out of him, but it was the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
Ask the ref what his interpretation is. You're allowed to do that.
Absolutely. Worst case scenario is what happened. He's going to tell you that he's not your coach, and you still make a good impression as the guy who's trying to do something.
Yeah.
That is different. That's actually the worst case scenario. He will explain the law again, just to make sure that you're 100% on it. So, absolutely ask the question. I think Hartley looked like an idiot for being a captain and standing next to his player who is actually doing his job.
And there was a point where Hartley was kind of wandering away and asking Haskell to kind of step back, as if, I don't know, as if they were bothering the ref too much. But,
and
you know, if something, this was a brand new thing that, well, not brand new, but certainly brand new to the Six Nations, and you're allowed for a clarification. Refs are asked clarification on what has happened in a call all the time.
And he never said don't ask questions. I think
which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think he's made mistakes, and I've highlighted 2 of them. There's probably more, but he has managed the game and the extraordinary, because it was absolutely extraordinary game. he's managed the whole game quite well by actually talking to the players, letting them talk to him, because they were talking to him in a respectful manner. When Haskell came up, he was literally asking a genuine question. He wasn't saying, "Oh, ref, this isn't going well," which is fine. So that's a normal way to talk to the referee.
Yeah.
And he answered in a normal way. And, well, it was pretty funny, to be honest, when he said, "I'm not your coach," and that was brilliant. And I do a lot of I do a little bit of coaching with children. I try to do a bit more, and from the RFU courses I've done and podcasts I listen to and everything, we talk about the joystick coach, the joystick coaching, which is literally telling your players what to do at all times, guiding them like they're an avatar. And the players at this point were expecting to be avatars, to be told exactly what to do at what point. When you get the ball, look left, look right, pass, run, tackle. And they didn't really seem to be wanting to make the decisions themselves. And so it's a bit of a caricature, but when he's saying, "I'm not your coach," you should have almost said, "And you don't need your coach, you should be thinking by yourself."
That was the problem. They weren't thinking for themselves, obviously, and
let's not forget that in the end they did. So they did come up with solutions. It was
second half.
Yeah, the point was that it was very slow, and they looked very confused. But in the end, they did come up with pretty good solutions to win by 21 points. So fair enough. I mean, in a way, hats off to them for actually finding the solution in the end. But the first half was not good for England. Definitely. Not impressed.
No, I don't. I agree that they came up with solutions. I don't think they solved it though by the second half. I think if Italy's fitness levels had been there for 80 minutes, I don't think that they actually solved it. I think that they put in some measures.
That's a big if. When you know that your fitness is superior, you use it. That's the problem solving.
Oh yeah, I know.
It's that simple. You've got an advantage. You use it. Boom. Problem solved.
Mm-hmm. I agree that but I suppose that's an argument. If I was saying that Italy should win the game, I don't think Italy should have won the game, because obviously they weren't fitter. But the tactics they were using, I think, weren't beaten.
No,
if that makes sense.
It's difficult to say, because they did lose in the end by a margin, even though it was all the way at the end. It's still, a decent margin. 21 points is just under the average for England-Italy, which was 24, I think.
So I was thinking to myself today, would a New Zealand club side or even a regional side have better response to Italy?
I think they would have. Somebody said, tweeted back, I think, at Matt Dawson, because he was being a dick about it. But I think there's no point trying to say how would other people's have reacted, because that game was really unique in that sense.
Yeah,
and it's just too difficult to say.
You watch the way that I don't know how much you watch a bit of Super Rugby, and you watch the way Chiefs play. You watch the way that Hurricanes play, Highlanders pop off the floor, picking goes in successions, offloads. That style destroys what Italy were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you play
Italy
quickly,
might not have done that.
If you play quickly in the gaps, you were saying one ball player to left, one to the right, one to the back. You've got these three, and Italy were rarely committing more than two people in that. What would be offside? I don't even know what to call it. Literally, the English backfield. Just going on the other side of the non-ruck. It was usually only the 9. It was gory. being in that position all the time, but not really the others, because if they had 4 people there, they would have created doglegs everywhere, and instead of being slightly risky, it would have been just so easy to dismantle.
Rather than playing that sweeping 9 role for the chip, he was being an annoyance to Danny Kerr, which
like you just said. So if he's not
that's
doing
where
that,
the hole was.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not doing that, where's the hole? Where the 9 would
be? Again, I would like to point out that Parise often goes there. I don't know whether he was. We're going to have to look at the tapes. But Parise often likes to do that.
Parise is always at the back. Pigamals is always at the back. When I play number 8, I like to go at the back. I'm terrible, though. That's the difference.
You stand in the 10 channel.
No, I actually don't do that. I stand in the 15 channel all the way at the back, hoping to get the ball and a free run it.
Oh, all right.
Anyone lighter than me. Which is most people, including props.
I do find it odd. So this is... we'll just get waylaid, whatever. At club rugby, and maybe it's just the level I'm playing at, I don't know, but I haven't found defensively that I've ever sat in the 15 spot. Because obviously if I play 10, 10s often sit back. But I've never... I've never been coached to do it. I've played a reasonable standard, not like crazy, but we've never really done it.
I think it's a different of standard for us, and I play a lower level than you. You get one forward helping out the backs whenever the 15 or one of the wingers is kicked and is chasing themselves. You cover, and that's it. But for lots of teams, if you're in certain positions of the field, you're going to get the 9 and the 10 all the way back, and you see George Ford quite a lot, and it's not just I think it's not just this player who's playing that position going up or down or in that position. It's also who you've got. So if you're England and you've got George Ford, who's a pretty good kicker out of hand, and you've got Daly with a massive boot, you're going to have them in the backfield, and you're going to have Johnny May up. Mm-hmm. Because he can create pressure on someone if he shoots up
also
at
not
the winger.
Great over the higher ball.
Even if he was, his kicking is let's say decent. It's probably international level, but it's not as good as Daly's and Ford's.
Yeah.
So you want him putting pressure at the top, putting pressure on the winger, but because he's so quick, and you're going to have a better kicker at the back. So if they didn't have that, if they had another Daly-like winger, maybe they wouldn't have Ford at the back all the time. And that's just
it isn't
smart tactics.
Oh no, it's always been good. You see Quay Cooper, you see most good kicking 10s sitting back. I think.
And the kind of 10s that can
I don't know
15.
if Aaron Cruden did, because I think, like you said, when you've got Milner Scudder, Ben Smith, and Israel Dag, Sevilla, he's not a great kicker, but he's alright.
For New Zealand?
Yeah, Aaron Cruden, I don't know if he sat back that much. He might have done.
I don't think he does. I don't remember him catching the ball in the air and either running past people or kicking the ball back. It doesn't really ring a bell.
Doesn't ring a bell, does it?
Whereas I've seen Barrett do that a million times.
Starting. Yeah, and obviously Barrett, that's where he started his Kiwi career.
And I've not seen, I don't think I've seen Sopoanga do it a lot. He's the kind of player I would have.
Sopoanga, he does it for the Highlanders.
But he's not played much with the All Blacks.
Yeah, he's not had I don't know if he's had 5 or 6 games for the All Blacks, maybe a bit more.
I would say less, but fewer.
Hansen has a sneaky way of getting caps to players where you think they haven't got that many, and then all of a sudden they're in double figures and they're quite used to playing for New Zealand.
Yeah, so they've only had not the most important games or not in the biggest context, but they've got that experience under their belt and they've got the confidence that comes with it.
He's got 6 caps, so there you go.
6 caps, there you go.
Yeah,
there's still very few for a player of his level.
Yeah, he's still up there. And I think him and Richie Mwanga will be... they're not going to overtake Barrett, but they're going to be good understudies, shall we say.
Yeah. And, anyway. Who knows? Barrett gets injured or dips in form. You never know.
It's true.
Or
It's true.
they
Well,
come up with a different tactic. They need a slower, more composed 10. Who knows?
I don't. Is Sapawanga more? Anyway, should we roll back to the Northern Hemisphere nonsense, because we've enjoyed Super Rugby actually, haven't we?
Yeah. Oh, right. So you've made one point that came from a post-match interview, which was the George Smith thing, and so
Yes.
I am. I absolutely love Eddie Jones, and I think he's an absolutely amazing coach, and I've been praising him since he got the job and since he arrived. I thought his post-match interview was bollocks.
I agree.
Complete bollocks. And I can understand why he did it. You can always say it was to take pressure off the players, and maybe it was. It was still absolute bollocks.
Not only was it bollocks, but it's made me a little bit worried, because Sim or Nero, whatever he goes by on the site, I don't know, our Super Rugby expert, he's also big into football obviously as well, because his seasons are all out of whack, even though he's an Englishman. He makes the point that he thinks Eddie Jones quite like Mourinho, and that he's got 2 or 3 seasons and then the players are burned out, and that what we saw in that interview is the real Eddie Jones.
I don't know about that.
He reckons that he gets player burnout, and he reckons you go back and you have a look at some of his other teams that he's coached and the way he does things, and players want to play for him. They absolutely die for him in the first 2 years, and then they lose a hell of a lot of respect, and something just goes wrong in that 3rd year.
Maybe, but I still think, first of all, that Mourinho's a twat, and I don't care about football anyway. So
no, I think it's an interesting comparison, because it's very true for Mourinho, and I don't know. Nero likes a big claim, but he's very right about quite a lot of weird things.
It'll be an interesting one to follow over the next 2 years and before the World Cup.
Yeah.
To see how much the England players are still buying into what Eddie Jones is doing. But so when he arrived, and not long ago, and I think I talked quite a lot about this. This old Scotland coach, when at Eddie Jones saying that England are not playing a nice brand of rugby, and he's coached the Wallabies and he's coached Japan, so you'd expect some expansive rugby from them, and I think that's complete bollocks as well. The fact that Eddie is smart enough to arrive in an England setup and capitalise on their best attributes, and not make them play the way that he thinks rugby should play, but rather emphasise what they do well and do it at the best possible, in the best possible way.
That's why I quite liked O'Shea's chat when he said we're doing it the Italian way.
Absolutely. That goes in the same way. Yeah. He said we can't be normal. We have to be Italy.
You play the rugby that you can play. You play the style. You play the whatever wins those games. And sure, you can. And this was what frustrated me back in the day. Everybody's like, "Oh, we should get Stefan Armitage into play. He's a great poacher. We don't have a poacher. Let's get a poacher like the Southern Hemisphere teams." At the time, I was just thinking, that's not the style of English rugby.
And all of that are when you think about it, and I didn't realise that the jackal was basically invented by George Smith. It kind of changed my world yesterday.
Well, you're already a fan, and then he just became your Lord and Saviour.
Absolutely, yeah. I didn't really know George Smith until I knew who he was and how he played. But when he came to Wasp, I realised how good he was.
So good.
Just incredible.
He's an animal. And he's one of those players that you think actually does know the laws better than the refs, especially the laws that specifically...
Especially that one that he made up.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Not made up, but he completely... It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Everything around his aspect... he knows those laws back to front, so that's someone who's not just going home and eating his protein or whatever. That's someone who's going home and is indoctrinated into rugby kind of thing. So, and that's
it's so
that's
smart.
that's kind of what I'd like. Well, it's kind of what we are at Linebreak, to be honest. We're everyone else goes home and they make some rice, and us idiots try and decide what would be the next interesting thing to talk about on the rugby, or next interesting thing to write about.
Yeah,
we're not quite George Smith levels, but we're still
we're a bit shit, aren't we?
Not in terms of analysis, just in terms of world beaters, we're not quite at that level.
No, but we'll get there, hopefully.
Wow, but with stuff like this, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. That's why I was so disappointed in Eddie Jones' post-match interview, because I think he's the kind of person that understands how much you need to adapt and how much you need to play with your own strengths, and confusing the other team is a perfectly good tactic. And
I think,
and they were confused to death.
Well, the England mentality in the first half was destroyed. I mean, I've said it at the beginning of this pod, but absolutely obliterated. And I've never seen a team disheartened that badly when they weren't losing. It's not like we were losing, and it's not like, well, we were, I suppose, for a little bit, but.
And I think mentally over the course of the tournament, this could have a big impact. And it could have an impact the other way. Like Scotland's coming to town next week or in 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, Scotland's coming to town.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to do? If I were Eddie Jones, I'd be literally waking them up in the morning going, Scotland's coming, what are you going to do? Scotland's coming, what are you going to do? Because they need to fire up. Because if they go with that mentality of just looking around for help, like completely helpless,
I think this is part of the problem. I think this is part of the problem. The England team are so fired up. There's nothing extra.
I don't think they looked fired up in the first 20 minutes.
But I mean, that's Eddie Jones. No, I agree they didn't. But that's Eddie Jones' whole philosophy, isn't it? They're beating Seven Hills out of each other in training. They are completely fired up all the time, or they're meant to be. But it's not possible to maintain that level of madness.
Tell that to Saracens.
Yeah, but Saracens are cool and calm and collected at certain points.
No, they're not.
They're ferocious in defence.
They're basically. I mean, you've all seen that GIF or video of Maro Itoje like ripping his scrum cap off at the end of the Wales game, and that's a good video. You've got to say that's fire.
But I think, but that's part of it. So I think that Itoje he might operate for you've done not sports psychology, but some form of sports psychology, or in some form. No,
not really. No, I just
okay. Well, I've done a brief amount. But there's certain levels of arousal, is what they call it.
Arousal.
Level of arousal.
Now you're finally describing my experience.
There we go. Right. So different people reach their perfect level of arousal. I can't remember the exact term. It's like a range or an area. I can't remember the exact term. Anyway, different people reach it in different ways. And I think Itoje, Daly, maybe Launchbury, they come across as quite cerebral, kind of clever players who they get fired up quite easily. They don't need to be crazy, but when they are fired up, they're really, really pumped. Like, it's not hard for them. I don't know. They'll think it through, but they don't need to be pumped to play well. Whereas Danny Kerr, to me, and Hartley, their level of arousal, they just go over it too often. They're too hyped.
Yeah.
Danny Kerr makes decisions that are obviously not correct because he's just so in the moment and so ramped up like crazy. And we've seen Hartley make decisions in club rugby, not necessarily international rugby, that someone should never make. He gets a red card for something stupid, and I think it's just people react differently, and I don't know, they need to factor that in.
I agree, and I'll argue that for once they didn't make any decisions. And that was the point. So this time they just didn't really know what to do. So they didn't, and the point is that they didn't really try quite enough, which is weird for a team that works so hard. And they prepare the games, and they work hard in the gym, they work hard on the pitch. They're really invested in this, and it's really weird to see them on the pitch, kind of thinking, well, why am I here?
Yeah, they were. I don't know. But Italy just got on with their job, which was brilliant. And I think Campagnaro's try was one of the best things I've seen in a long time.
It was gorgeous. I mean, who thought? I mean, stepping the physios, brilliant. Stepped the physios, ran into George Ford,
brushed George Ford
brushed
off like he wasn't there.
Jamie George, like as if he was faster than him. Obviously, no one's faster than Jamie George.
He actually ghosted Mike Brown. I don't know if Mike Brown touched him.
His step was absolutely. I think he, barely tips of his fingers.
Barely brushed him.
But it was a really weird step because he got very low, but he made it, and then he lost his balance on his own. I actually saw it in slow-mo, and you can see Campagnaro trips himself.
Yeah.
It
wasn't quite Shane Williams. Shane Williams would have had the balance.
Yeah. But he trips himself, and that's when Daly comes in. So he's actually already going down when Daly comes to almost make a try-saving tackle. Great try. And and they've said it in the commentary. The first Italian try was hilarious, but it also showed that some of the England players under the post just weren't looking.
That I spoke. I don't know if the other pod will come out, so you'll hear my opinions on that in the other pod. But me and Ed both agree that if Rob Shaw had been on the pitch, we think he would have been there, because that's all he does. He does everything formulaic. He looks at the post. He does X, Y, Z.
Extra hard work.
Yeah, he just does those little things, and I think that if Rob Shaw was on the pitch,
maybe I don't like to do
maybe he solves that. No, obviously you don't. But I feel like we were missing that little boring human.
Maybe. Well, if you go into the seemingly boring players, I think Launchbury is a bit of an enigma for me. He is a phenomenal rugby player, and he just looks bored at all times.
He does, doesn't he?
Whatever the score is, whatever's going on, he just looks a bit bored, and he doesn't look like he's really even athletic.
It looks like a day job as well.
Yeah, he looks like he's this really tall man that just like he's 16, and last year he was 5'4", and he just became 7 foot tall suddenly and doesn't really know what to do with his body. And he's actually one of the best rugby players on the planet.
Yeah, he is. He genuinely is. I think it's become a weird default that we just give him man of the match, though.
I don't think. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I would have given it to Daly.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Or Eduardo Gori, the Italian 9. I thought he was phenomenal.
We didn't talk about him, but yeah, he had a nice little game.
He had more than a nice little. I mean, he was just everywhere. I mean, everywhere for Danny Kerr. I think Danny Kerr probably has nightmares of Gori just, running around his bed, just being around him at all times. He had actually a brilliant game.
I need to. I tell you what, I need to rewatch the game, have a look at who was covering the Nines loop around, have a look at how he actually played. And I think I was analysing England quite heavily, but I just need to look at Italy and see what they were doing, because I don't know. It's going to be one of those games that refs always refer back to and go, look, this is it.
Yeah.
And Dawson was obviously, well, we've all seen Dawson's tweets, and if you haven't, you can go and have a look. He's furious for whatever reason. He's a bit of an idiot at the moment. But he's making the point that, the local dog shit park rugby team, that the refs aren't going to know what's going on.
Yeah, and to be fair, I play in one of those, and the refs never know what's going on, so it's not going to change much.
Exactly.
And the players don't either, just so that everyone's clear on that.
It's, yeah. I think that refs on Sunday morning or Saturday they're gonna have someone coming up to them and going, "You watched the game on Saturday, right? Okay, so this is what we're gonna do." Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's gonna be the odd game around the country that's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I mean, first week of January, one of the teams in my club got 7 yellow cards in the first game. because the referee, looked at TV during the first weekend and were
High
like,
tackle.
all right, I'm going to give yellow cards for everything. And well, it was a friendly, so it made it funny. If it had been an important league game, I don't think we would find it as funny.
Fuming. Yeah.
And it was,
You
I think
don't
it was
give
4 on
yellows.
each side, which
You
makes it
don't
doesn't
give
make 7.
excessive yellows in a friendly. Like, you make forced substitutions
No,
or
it
you
was
do X,
it
Y,
was it was
Z.
very funny. I wasn't there, but it's still funny.
Oh dear.
Yeah, some
Right.
still talk about the time that half the team was off the pitch.
Yeah, well, that's true. You can always look back on that fondly, can't you? Due to that ref. Right. We're gonna have to wrap up. I'm gonna have to play the music, I think.
Yeah.
Sadly, Broadchurch. This will date and time it. Broadchurch is about to start, so yeah.
That's why.
Moving on. That's why.
That makes sense.
Any last thoughts on? Well, I had a big chat about captains earlier. Thoughts on Hartley and his lack of leadership? We've already talked about him.
Difficult one because we can only see what's going on. We can't hear much of it. Oh yeah, I wanted to make 2 points or maybe 3. I can't remember.
Go on, finish it off.
A few things that people didn't necessarily notice. One, Parise was talking to Poit in French, probably helped him. And second thing is, how funny must the conversation be between Conor O'Shea and Danny Kerr at the end of the game? Because the one person he bamboozled the most was Danny Kerr.
Yeah.
And he coached him forever, so he probably
They're
knew that
mates.
this might
They're definitely mates,
actually put him off. It was more than...
It's interesting. He knows Danny Kerr, he played with Danny Kerr, and he actually just mentally blew him out of the water.
Knew how to break him.
Yeah. That's actually really... I like that. I hadn't even thought of it. But yeah, he broke Danny Kerr.
Yeah. And the reason I thought of that is because I saw 2 things posted on Instagram, I think from Danny Kerr. One of them was that, or just like a picture. I saw a picture of them. Don't know who posted it. And then I saw another picture of Danny Kerr playing that he posted saying, thanks for everyone after the win. And thanks for the fans for the great atmosphere. I was like, if there was one game where the fans were shit at Twickenham, it was this one. So don't thank the fans for this one.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the atmosphere is shit at Twickenham at all times. I don't think that's true.
It was.
But I think it was shit this week.
I got very annoyed listening to the booing and listening to the mob mentality going on, and I mean, England fans actually get annoyed. They get annoyed at me because I don't like it when people get tribal about their team. Like, I'm gonna back England no matter what. I'm gonna back them, and I'm gonna want them to win. I'm gonna be the first one cheering when someone goes over in the corner and we win the Triple Crown, or we win the Calcutta Cup or the Grand Slam, all right? I'm going to be absolutely going crazy. But I tell you what, if the ref is doing his job correctly and you're booing him, I'm not going to just chime in as an England fan and say, that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit.
Yeah, definitely
I'm
not in the
interested
stadium.
in it.
Yeah.
I'm not into it. It's not my vibe.
I mean, I will stand up and insult everyone at the pub when I know, they're right.
Yeah.
Just because they're my mates and I want to piss them off. But I wouldn't do that in the stadium. That's really weird.
It's I don't know. It's a mentality that I've never... I mean, maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm not really getting the whole, following your country and club sort of deal. But
no, I think it was just very difficult when you're in the stadium and you don't hear the ref as much as you do on TV. And I highly doubt that people at Twickenham heard Poit tell Launchbury that pulling someone in isn't good enough.
Yeah, 100%.
So if you've seen that happen live and you genuinely think that's a solution, and there's good reason for thinking that is a solution, you're going to get pissed that it didn't work.
100%.
Still no excuse for booing the ref, but it does explain some of the atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't justify it. It's just Twickenham. I think most places might have got a little bit annoyed, but it does seem to be English crowds.
I feel like it wouldn't have happened in Dublin, probably not in Cardiff, definitely in Paris. 100% would have happened in France.
I don't know, Dublin and I'm not sure. I don't know if it might not be nationality based. I'm not 100% on that.
No, it's
France,
about the culture that surrounds the place, or the way that you go in there, or there's something about the Irish in their stadiums where they just go silent, and it's just become a tradition, maybe. And it's become something that they do and that they're recognised for, and it's brilliant.
There's less of that annoying jeering and booing, yeah, perhaps.
There's none. They've realised that being completely silent when the kicker's about to go, and he can basically hear himself breathing and basically hear his heart beating.
Own heartbeat, yeah. Especially after a big run.
It's so much harder than having a couple wankers booing. It really is. I'm sure I don't think there's a single foreign kicker that's going to say it's easier to take a kick in the silence of the Aviva rather than in the noise of Paris. I can tell you,
on the silence, when I was, on the silence of Dogshit Park, I can hear my own heartbeat. Whew, that kick's getting harder and harder.
Yeah, it's so obvious that it's so much harder, and it is more respectful. It's much nicer to watch on TV. Mm-hmm. It's just better in every way.
Right, it's 8:59. It's time to hang up.
Go away.
We've had our thoughts. This has been Linebreak Rugby. We've talked a hell of a lot about Italy, England. If you have any questions for next week's episode, please leave them in the comments. We did have a mailbag in the last episode. It may have to have been cut because the audio was really weird. But send us your comments. We will redo mailbag and questions next week, and it will be awesome. And we are going to make this weekly. We just had a week off and then did 2 in a row. So there you go.
Awesome.
There you go.
Oh.
Cool. Music's playing. Happy birthday.
Dude.
I don't know, Linebreak. Like 5-year anniversary. Actually, no, I think that's in May. Is it in May?
Oh, I don't even know. No, probably later.
We should know.
It's probably June. July?
I'm not sure.
Right, who knows? Clearly, we don't.
Well, we'll have to figure that out. Maybe the YouTube page was the first thing created. Anyway, figure out when our birthday is. That can be... Right, I'm going to stop recording.
Right, yeah, me too. Right.